Today we're going to talk about London being an art capital. So, London's top-ranking position in terms of culture and art is not something that happens overnight. On the 1700s, the country experienced a cultural boost with the foundation of the British Museum. Then, on the 1800s, London was the host of the most important museums in the world, such as the National Gallery, the Victoria and Albert Museum, the Natural History Museum, and the Now Tate Britain, and also the creation of the most prestigious art schools in Britain and the world, such as the Royal College of Art, the University of Arts in London, and the Goldsmiths College of Art. And then on the 1900s, London saw a culture grow ruled by the decade. So we had the Teddy Boys and the rock and roll. London became the epicenter of fashion. There were a lot of social movements against the Vietnam War and the Basque Women Liberation Movement. The Serpentine Galleries were founded, and the first London Parade was held, and the United Kingdom joined the European Union in 1973. During the 80s, the art scene was shaken by a group of Goldsmith students with the Frieze exhibition led by Damien Hirst, which displayed artists such as Sarah Lucas and Tracy Emin. Then the 90s came, and with it a massive wave of cool Britannia with pop culture inspired by the 60s. So this new culture, added with the globalization and the rise of the media, resulted in the vision of London as the hippest city in the world. During this particular decade, the UK was also thriving by an uninterrupted rise of the economy, led by Tony Blair being the major. So during this time, the UK, and particularly London, became a brand that represented the highest standards of music, art, and politics. So all this history has led London to be a global art market center. In 2019, we had 42 art fairs in the United Kingdom, from which 31 were in London. This means that London, even if the UK as a whole is a very representative of the arts, London is the epicenter of it. This represents 13% of the art fair location, only beaten by the combination of all the other countries of Europe combined and the US. It is very important to mention that the US has two very important hubs, one in the west with New York and one in the east with LA. Also, in terms of global market share, we can see that in 2019, the UK held the second position against the United States. This is because the US has the highest rates of high income and upper middle class individuals. As we can see on the chart on the essay, we can see that the US holds 40% of the global share of millionaires, while the UK only has 5%. This means that actually the Americans are buying art in the UK because they trust the art and the quality, and it's a very well-established market. Also, in the action world, we can see that UK takes the third place below China and the US. It's important to say that China has a lot of new money, but the way that auction houses could enter the Asian art market was through Hong Kong because of the political pressure of mainland China against US companies. So even though it is a safe way to enter the Asian market, Hong Kong also represents a lot of uncertainty due to the political situation mainland China is having against the ex-British colony. So if we jump forward to today and looking back in the past 2 years, 2020 and 2021, the UK, especially London, has encountered two very important challenges. Brexit on January 31st, 2020, and then COVID with its first lockdown on the 23rd of March, 2021. Having these events so close together makes it very challenging to evaluate the art scene and the market during the periods of 20 and 21. But there are still some information that makes us understand the actual effects of Brexit, COVID, and how the UK can hold its position as a leading agent in the art world. One of the biggest fears towards Brexit was how it would impact imports and exports of artworks. So what we can actually see is that there were a lot of storage facilities such as Cadogan Tate Paris that experienced high demands the weeks prior of Brexit taking place. Another menace toward lowering the UK's rank in the cultural marketplace was the low tariff France had in comparison to other European countries. With the UK out of the picture, France becomes a superstar in the market in the EU. On top of this, a consultation by the Office of Student and the UK Education Secretary said that they were going to cut 50% of funds of our art subject in university. This is very worrying, particularly because long term it might mean that London will face big brain drains. However, these challenging circumstances forced the UK and other institutions in Europe to think outside the box. And for example, France is launching an initiative for visitors to actually vote online to vote which artworks they want to see out of storage in their museums. And another initiative the UK is having is making museums more relevant than they were before. And because of the increase of digitalization, it is very easy now for people to interact with museums. So museums such as the V&A now want to make more holistic approaches and make proactive exhibitions that will combine live projects. So by being forced to think outside the box, we can clearly see a new challenge the UK can face, and is to actually change the definition of museums. So right now the definition of museum is a building in which objects of historical, scientific, artistic, or cultural interest are stored and exhibited. And with these new social changes and this digitalization, actual museums and the art world in London can change to a narrative that includes social changes, cultural heritage representation, and for being a facilitator of discussions for present interests such as gender and race equality.